The members of the selection committee were housed together, away from the general population. To reach them, Tamrat and I walked down a corridor lined with cells holding other prisoners, mostly fads, but lots of other species I'd never seen before. They stared at us through their bars. Maybe they'd heard the PPB fire. Maybe they'd noticed that there had been no regular patrols. Maybe they realized that pistol-packing alien kids, one of whom was drenched with blood, did not usually walk down this corridor. Captain Quassel had told me that a lot of these people were political prisoners, but many were genuine criminals, the kind that knock off alien liquor stores or pull off alien bank heists. Other than her crew and the selection committee, none were from the Confederation, so their loyalties were unknown. We couldn't risk taking any of them with us. Our plan was to open the gate just before we left so the prisoners would have access to the planet, which meant food and water, as well as any shuttles we left behind. What they did with all of that was their own business, but this was a habitable planet, and they wouldn't starve. We were doing nothing unethical, and we hoped that it would create the biggest possible mess for the Fatic Empire to clean up. Soon, the enemy shuttle would land and deliver supplies. Our guys would capture, and the captain would lead her team to take over the Fatic vessel. That seemed much riskier to me, but she thought she could do it, and she understood that fortune favored the bold. The captain was both brave and bold, which was a pretty good combination in my opinion. Then we were at the gate. Tamrat had rigged the system so she could control it from her data bracelet, but we just stood there, not doing anything. I wasn't ready for this. I'd been fatherless for 5 years. My mother had been without a husband when she learned she was going to die slowly and horribly. I missed my father, and I loved him, but I was afraid that when I saw him I would feel nothing but anger. "There's so much you don't know," Tamrat said, as if reading my mind. "Why don't you just find out?" I nodded, activated the controls, and opened the doors. We stepped into a new section of the prison. 5 prisoners, 1 per cell, each a member of the selection committee. I recognized them from the data files. As we passed each cell, the being inside nodded or waved or bowed. None of them spoke. They all seemed to understand what was happening, and they respected it. I figured that their time in prison had given my father plenty of opportunities to tell them the story of who he really was. I passed them, hardly glancing at the beings who had changed my life, changed all of our lives. I walked down the corridor, and Tamrat squeezed my hand. Then we were in front of his cell. He wasn't wearing the cape or the ridiculous crossed red suspenders. He wore plain pants and a plain long-sleeve shirt. He was green and muscular and had a protruding brow, but under it all was my father. He was smiling at me, his eyes glistening. "Hi, Zeke," he said. "Hi." It was all I could manage. He shook his head slightly. "You look more like Mal Reynolds than Zeke Reynolds. And you look like Martian Manhunter." I couldn't even guess what I felt. Relief, pride, love, rage. All of them mixed together in a pot of boiling soup, each feeling taking its turn rising to the surface. I had no idea how my tone sounded, and I didn't really want to know, honestly. He let out a breathy half-laugh. "Yeah, I do. That's sort of a long story." He looked at Tamrat, at the two of us holding hands. "You're one of the Rarl girls, aren't you?" She nodded. "I hope that's not your blood." She shrugged. "It's fine. I'm a quick healer." His eyes narrowed. "I guess so. Are you gonna let us out of here?" "In a minute," I told him. "I need to know why you left us." "This may not be the best time to catch up," he said. "I think it's a pretty good time," I told him. Maybe it was the adrenaline, the experience of being in combat, of thinking Tamrat was dead, of having broken into prison. Maybe I wasn't myself, but I was furious now. He'd left his family and gone off to the stars and turned himself into a superhero. I needed to know why, and I needed to know now. "Zeke," he said gently, "I will tell you everything. The whole story. When we're safe. For now, what you need to know is that I didn't plan to leave, or choose to leave, Earth. That wasn't a decision I made. I would never have done that to you and your mother." "And you never had the chance to come back?" He looked away. "After I'd been gone for a few years, I was in a position where I possibly could have returned to Earth, though getting there was going to be a risk. But by then I knew our world was in trouble, in danger of being conquered by the Phatic Empire. I couldn't go home just to wait for the end. I had to choose whether I wanted to be with the people I loved or to save them. Can you understand that?" I did understand it. I knew it was the most terrible sort of decision a person could have to make, because it was the same decision I'd been forced to make with my mother. I understood he'd done what he had to do, and yet I was still angry with him for doing it. He gestured towards the 4 other beings from the selection committee, each in their cells, each watching me. It was a menagerie of strange beings, a variety of forms, but they all looked like they understood every nuance of this unfolding drama. "Zeke," my father said, "I know you would do anything to keep your friends safe. Captain Quassel told me about you, how you saved that ship. Well, these beings are my friends. Please help me get them to safety." Tamrat shoved me. "Open your father's cell and give him a hug, you idiot." I did. I felt like I was in a trance, but I called up the command console and told the system to open the doors. The bars slid away. My father, my big green father, stepped out of his prison cell, arms wide, and pulled me into him. It was so weird to hug him again, not least because he was now insanely buff. Yet, as I felt his strangely massive green arms wrap around me, I knew it was him. My father, and I understood he had suffered for the choices that had been forced upon him. He'd tried to do the right thing, and it had cost him. "Can you forgive me?" he asked. I'm gonna try," I said. He hugged me again. "Is your mom okay?" I nodded. I didn't have the heart to tell him the truth just yet. "I bet she misses you," he said. "She misses you too, Dad. All the time, every day," I told him. He looked away, and there seemed to be tears in those hooded Martian eyes. Just then, a message came up over my data bracelet. "Mr. Reynolds, please acknowledge." It was from Captain Quassel. I tapped my bracelet. "I'm here."
"Mr. Reynolds, we have taken command of the Phatic cruiser in orbit. Our mission is accomplished. Can I suggest you finish your business on the surface, so we can depart before any more surprises come our way?"
"Agreed, Captain."
"Oh, and your friend Steve thought you should have the honor of renaming our commandeered ship. Perhaps in reference to one of those fictions you enjoy."
My father looked at me. He was grinning a broad, geeky grin. It was the kind of grin he'd flash when we were watching TV or a movie and he had some especially geeky observation to make, something he was really proud of. "An enemy ship recaptured while escaping imprisonment. How about Reliant? It was a stolen Federation ship from Star Trek II. "A good suggestion," I told him, "but I have a better one." I spoke into my bracelet. "Ma'am, can we call her the Dependable?" There was a brief moment of silence, and she said,
"It's a very good name."
"I think so."
"So, how soon can you rendezvous?"
she asked. I told her to hold a minute, and I turned to my father. "The Fads were obviously looking for something here. Did they find it, or can we take it from them?" "They found it," he said, And that's a whole nother story. There are still artifacts here, but none are worth delaying our departure over. I contacted the captain. We're finished up down here. I hope to be on board within half an hour.
Be quick and be careful,
Captain Quassel said, and signed off. It was time to snap out of it. My father was right, for now it was time to close up shop. I worked the security console to free the rest of the selection committee and ushered everyone back to the bunker. As we walked, my father kept close to my side. Tamrat walked ahead of us, her steps cautious and careful, and kind of cat-like. I watched her ears bounce as she moved. "She your girlfriend?" my father asked. "I'm not sure," I said. "Maybe. I think so. I hope so." "The beautiful alien girl," he said, shaking his head, smiling. "That's so old school."